So then can I ask you to, I'm sure you have tons of team members that analyze so many aspects of the industry, the trends and everything. So what are those main trends and shifts that you're seeing right now, especially that would affect the small or mid-sized operators?
Well, I'd say the biggest trends are trend diversification, right?
Okay.
You can't just be a taxi company anymore. You can't just be an NEMT company. One of the past presidents uh, for the Transportation Alliance, a guy by the name of Tom Arrighi up in Massachusetts, he told me early on, he said, Dan, if you're looking out your window and you see a car go by and somebody's sitting in the back seat, you should ask yourself, why isn't that my vehicle? And he said, and it doesn't matter what they're doing. You should ask yourself, why aren't I doing that transportation? And so that is a trend. And that's, again, why the Transportation Alliance went from TLPA to the Transportation Alliance. So hey, you can do everything, someday, you can do microtransit and you can be doing NEMT because now you have the software to do all that. The obviously how AVs and autonomous vehicles are going to impact the industry is a big one. But I was just at a conference in Nashville last week, International Association of Transportation Regulators, and a lot of the discussion wasn't that it's going to completely replace. Because first off, no one really knows. Is it going to be the Waymo model where Waymo owns everything? Is it going to be more the Tesla model where you own the vehicle? No one knows what model is going to take place yet. But I was talking. One of our drivers, Mary Jones, she won the IATR Driver of the Year, and so she was at the conference with me. And of course, the driver starts hearing about autonomous vehicles, and they're like, "Hey, that doesn't sound great for me." But I said, "But think about it, Mary. You transport people to and from medical appointments, and some of what you do are elderly people or some behavioral people." I said, "If you were an autonomous vehicle, you would still be there, but now you could focus on the patients, and you're not focusing on driving and the patients." So, it changes what you're going to do, but it doesn't necessarily eliminate your position. But it takes that driving out. So autonomous vehicles are a huge, and then just how you integrate the AI aspects into everything you're doing right now. Those are really kind of the big trends. Of course, here in the States, what's going to happen with, um, healthcare, transportation, and there's a lot of questions around funding and those issues, and um, that's got a lot of people wondering, what contracts are going to be good and what contracts are not, and if you're in microtransit, but really the big trends right now are the kind of diversifying and the and that ability to you know I mean, if someone as we, the limousine industry has done a great job for years of their affinity program, their affiliate program, right? Whenever they take someone to the airport, they're in contact generally with a colleague in another city to do the transportation of somebody at the other end of the airport. That's something the taxi industry, the NEMT industry has really not focused on a lot. But you know, you think about it, it's the same thing. Every time you're taking somebody to the airport or the train station, they're going to get to the other end of their trip and they're going to need similar accommodations generally. And so, why, now with the technology that's available, it's a lot easier to have a colleague, uh, say in Florida, that, I can, hey, reach out, Brandy. I've got a passenger who's flying in. Do you have a capability to pick them up at the airport? I got somebody who's just got married and they're honeymooning at Niagara Falls. Do you have can you pick these people? Those sort of things are really starting to expand the global reach and the footprint of small operators, even if you're just in a small town in Mississippi.
But that requires sort of a different vision because it has been sort of traditionally and expected to see each other as a competition, even if located in different locations. But now understanding that, and that's brilliant what you're sharing, seeing that you can no longer view each other as a competition per se, but rather as cooperation where you can both benefit. The win-win scenarios are there, but it just requires, to sort of see that.
That's absolutely true, and I would say that is, if there's one thing about the Transportation Alliance that, to me is one of the biggest benefits, is the networking opportunities. The ability on a monthly basis to get on one of our steering committee calls, or at our, live functions or our webinars, to network with people, talk to people, and understand. Again, it goes back to, the pie is so big, you can't do it all, right?
Yeah.
So you got to find a way to do it better, and that networking, and not everybody's your competition. Sure, the guy right next to you with 10 vehicles may be your competition on a lot of things, but not always. And you got to recognize that you're going to compete on contracts, but there's going to be times where you can work together. That's a big shift that has happened, I think, in this industry. And it's really one that is opening up the industry to dialogue, and allowing everyone to improve themselves, because no one's keeping the secrets to themselves. You come to Vegas next month at Mobilize, and there's companies sharing their ideas openly of how they do things, whether it's a 2 vehicle company or 1,000 fleet company, um, 1,000 vehicle fleet company. They're sharing their ideas, and that makes everybody better.
Yeah.
I actually now have written your phrase down, and I'm going to be using it then. So you can't do it all, but you need to find a way to do it better. That pretty much sums up everything that we stand for. This is beautiful. But also, apart from networking, you've mentioned regulations. You visit the conferences on regulations. How does TTA helps members stay ahead of, or at least in line of, new policies and compliance requirements?
So we have a lobbying arm, a
Mhm.
pretty strong advocacy arm. We have a PAC, a political action committee, fund, and we every year set out. In fact, we have a call later this afternoon, our government relations committee, and we set out our agenda. And it is things we'd like to accomplish, and things we'd like to make sure don't get accomplished, and things that that pop up along the way. So that committee, and we have a lobbyist, a full-time lobbyist in Washington, D.C. And that committee is a very strong part of the TTA. And so, this year we had several different uh, pieces we're working on, making sure, trying to get regulations requiring microtransit to at least be put out to bid to local operators. We spent a lot of time early in the year making sure that NEMT was, people understood the importance of NEMT and Medicaid funding, because that obviously was a big issue in the states here early on. We have policies on several different uh, priorities that we're working on. Independent contractors, maintaining the independent contractor status. So those, we have that, and that's a very big key. We communicate that information out to our members. We make it available. We've been encouraging over the recent years the formation of local organizations, sort of sub organizations within each state, because a lot of what you need to do is done at the state. That didn't happen a few years ago when everyone was a competitor. You couldn't get everyone in the room. Now people realize, okay, we're competitors, but we've got a common interest in accomplishing goals. So that's another item. And then we have our steering committee. So this past year we had safety and loss control, operations, and business development. They met once a month, talked about different topics, and then had open forum discussions at the end of those. Next year, we're adding AIAV, kind of our technology, and AIAV steering committee, because again, that's a big piece. So those trends are presented, and we're bringing industry experts on the monthly calls. We have webinars. We do a fly-in in April to DC, and that's where we come in, we meet, we discuss what progress we've made, what are our big key positions, then everyone goes and meets with their representatives and senators on the Hill to talk about our issues. We have open houses, which have been very successful this past year. Not huge, so anywhere between 5 to maybe 15 providers meet at different locations. So we had one in Phoenix, one in Akron, Ohio, one in Indianapolis. Those two were actually at vehicle manufacturer conversion companies, Bronability and Driverge, which was really neat because we got to see their factories. We had one in Boston, one in Grand Junction, and one in Montreal. And you just come in and the host company presents what they're doing, some of the neat things they've done, and everyone has a possibility to talk about how they're doing it or how they might do it, or different discussion points on different topics. So we're constantly, our theme this year was drive value to our members. That was our key. Anything we could, we have a newsletter that goes out every month. We have an RFP database, so all of our members can go on and see any RFP that's been issued in the United States, for services in any jurisdiction. So we try to always be out in front of of growing trends and keeping our members informed.
Wow. Okay. Sounds like TTA is sort of also multitasking on a different scale, becoming like business advisor, lobbyist, industry therapist, networking organizer, and maybe part-time peacekeeper.
Yeah, you know it's a very active organization, and again, it's member driven. So it's not a trade association that's basically, the whole industry. It is fleet owner driven, and so it allows us to really keep our focus. We do a lot, but we have a focus on fleet operators. And they're not everybody agrees on everything, right? I'm an employer based company. For me, independent contractors are not a big issue because I don't use them, and in fact, it's sometimes it's almost harder for me to compete with companies that have independent contractors. But it's such a big key part of our industry that as an association, it is one of our core values, one of our core, missions is to preserve independent contractors. That, it's an area where, okay, I say, that it doesn't, it's not important to me, but it's important to the industry. And so we focus on it. There's other areas where, on the NEMT side, we want to make sure everyone has good, solid background checks and training. Not everybody necessarily wants to have that, but they know that that's really the right thing. And so, when we advocate for it, everyone gets on board with it.